Something put it into the boys' and girls' heads to buy gorgeous visiting cards, 10 cents a package, and exchange. The exchange was merry, till one girl, a tall newcomer, refused my card, refused it peremptorily with a glance. Then it dawned upon me with a certain suddenness that I was different from the others, or alike, mayhap, in heart and life and longing, but shut out from their world by a vast veil. I had thereafter no desire to tear down that veil, to creep through. I held all beyond it in common contempt, and lived above it in a region of blue sky and great wandering shadows. That sky was bluest when I could beat my mates at examination time, or beat them at a foot race, or even beat their stringy heads. Alas, with the years all this fine contempt began to fade, for the words I longed for and all their dazzling opportunities were theirs, not mine. But they should not keep these prizes, I said. Some, all, I would wrest from them. Just how I would do it, I could never decide. By reading law, by healing the sick, by telling the wonderful tales that swam in my head. Some way. With other black boys, the strife was not so fiercely sunny. Their youth shrunk into tasteless sycophancy, or into silent hatred of the pale world about them and mocking distrust of everything white, or wasted itself in a bitter cry, "Why did God make me an outcast and a stranger in mine own house?" The shades of the prison house closed round about us all, walls straight and stubborn to the whitest, but relentlessly narrow, tall, and unscalable to the sons of night, who must plod darkly on in resignation, or beat unavailing palms against the stone, or steadily, half hopelessly, watch the streak of blue above. After the Egyptian and Indian, the Greek and Roman, the Teuton and Mongolian, the Negro is a sort of seventh son, born with a veil, and gifted with second sight in this American world, a world which yields him no true self-consciousness.
Good afternoon. My name is Dexter Kelvey, and I'm a senior here at Southern University. Hold on. This light is kind of. Okay, this is much better. I want to talk to you about W.E.B Dubois. W.E.B Dubois exemplifies the concept of overcoming through personal responsibilities through his concepts of the veil and double consciousness. This comes from the soul of black folks. Du Bois' goal is to represent what it is like to be black in America at the beginning of the 20th century, because he is convinced that race is the central problem of the century to come. He states this in the foredots and chapters throughout his collection. He also follows with a loose thematic grouping of essays to end with. His main ideal was to attempt equal rights for the blacks in the South to vote, get a good education, and to be treated with equality and justice. In addition, with these enduring concepts, he proposed, he purpose drive the country's attempts to assess the progress of the black race, the obstacles to that progress, and the possibilities for future progress as the nations in the 20th century. He brings together a blend of history, sociological data, poetry, songs, and the benefit of his personal experience to propose his vision of how and why color poses such a problem, at the turn of the 20th century. His assertions of unexpected and the collection continues to provide insight into the ways that the African American culture is essentially to the larger American culture, and how history has made that relationship inherently different. So, in chapter one, it lays out an overview of Du Bois' thesis for the book. It says that the blacks of the South needs the right to vote, a good education, and to be treated with equality and justice. It also defines his term double consciousness. It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. Now, the first chapter also introduces his famous metaphor, the veil. According to Du Bois, the veil is worn by all African Americans because their view of the world as its potential economic, political, and social opportunities is so vastly different from of the white people. The veil is a visual manifestation of the color line, a problem Du Bois worked his whole life to remedy. The functions of the veil, when he refers to, is a gift of the second son for African Americans. Now, in chapter 3 and 4, it focuses on education. Well, I'm sorry. The second chapter, The Dawn of Freedom, covers the history of Fredman's Bureau during Reconstruction. I'm sorry. Now, the third chapter and the fourth chapter focus on education. It is here that Du Bois argues against Booker T. Washington's idea of focusing solely on industrial education for black men. Chapter 4 and 5 are like studies of the black community, and Du Bois investigate the influence that of segregation and discrimination have had on the black people. And he argues that much of the negative stereotypes of blacks as lazy, violent, and simple minded are results of the treatment from the white people. In chapter 5 of The Fate of the Father, Du Bois describes the rise of the black church and examines the history and contemporary state of religion spiritualisms among African Americans. The final chapters of the book are devoted in narratives of individuals. And there's the passing of the firstborn, which tells the story of Du Bois' own son and his ultimate death. And in the next chapter, there's like a short biography. But and the last chapter is about the Negro music, and it makes reference to like short musicals, passages at the beginning of each of those chapters. I want to play something here.
The water is crying to me. Unresting water, there shall never be rest, till the last moon droop, and the last tide fail, and the fire of the end begin to burn in the west. And the heart shall be weary, and wonder, and cry like the sea, all life long crying without avail, as the water all night long is crying to me. Arthur Symonds. Between me and the other world, there is ever an unasked question, unasked by some through feelings of delicacy, by others through the difficulty of rightly framing it. All, nevertheless, flutter round it. They approach me in a half-hesitant sort of way, eye me curiously or compassionately, and then, instead of saying directly, "How does it feel to be a problem?" they say, "I know an excellent colored man in my town," or "I fought at Mechanicsville," or "Do not these southern outrages make your blood boil?"
Okay, I'm back. Now you're probably wondering why am I wearing this, but I think I forgot to mention I'm a graduating senior, graduating in biology, and my custom stole just came in, so I want to try it on. It came out nice actually. Okay, in my essay, I also mentioned the talented 10. 10, I'm sorry. Okay, the talented 10 was an essay written by W.E.B Du Bois and published in September 1903. The phrase talented 10 Um, it describes the likelihood of 1 in 10 men becoming leaders of their race in the world through methods such as continuing education, writing books, or becoming directly involved in social change. He strongly believed that blacks need a classical education to be able to reach their potential, rather than the industrial education promoted by such people as Booker T. Washington. Okay, so this kind of concludes my presentation, but just one last thing, just a little refresher. I just came up with something, just want to close it with. The souls of black folks. I'm, I'm sorry, hold on. That's not right. Okay. The Souls of Black Folks is a book of poems and essays by W.E.B Dubois. Although he did not write these all himself, he did a real good job doing it. I enjoyed hearing the stories of his life, and it really gives a good connection between him and the reader, even though we are generations apart. Although slavery was already abolished at this time in the United States, the U.S. was still far from having equality between blacks and whites. And he made it easy for me as the reader to see how it was to be African American in this time period. So farewell. I really enjoyed this semester. I wish you and all my classmates the best. And I hope I get a good grade. Thank you.